Hey everybody, really good to see you all. I'm Wes Furman. I'm the lead here at APL for our support of NASA Space Tech's LSII. I want to start again just by taking the opportunity to say thank you to all of you folks who have put in hard work. I'm incredibly impressed that over the last 5 years, you've actually changed the moon. Some of the technologies you've developed, they didn't exist 5 years ago when LSIC started or when my kids were born. And actually, if you entertain me, I've got just a second for a kid's story. I mean, I heard a couple of them already, but kids and launches is like the theme of the day. I don't know, maybe when you've been together for 5 years, you start thinking about kids. That's what had happened for my wife and I. So we had the chance to take my kids to the IM-2 launch back in February. And we're going to hear about that, some of the tech that was on there and more for sure as well. One thing that happened, it was about an hour after sunset, so the lights come down on Banana Creek, when you're on the bleachers. And the launch was counting down, and my kid taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "Who was the first person to call it the moon?" And if you know me, my goldfish brain started wondering, who was the first person who ever put a name to the moon? But, I forgot about it immediately because when the launch goes off, everything goes away. And it's just thunderous exhaust lighting up the sky, and it's incredible experience for them. And I'd actually completely forgotten about this until about 2 weeks ago when one of my neighbors down the street told me that her daughter's second word was moon, which was incredible to me. The moon, it reminds me the moon has been a part of our lives for generations, from before we even had a name for it. And now because of your work, we're able to see things going off to the moon now. We're going to get to see some of that tech that's on deck tomorrow at our showcase. And where I get a little bit nerdy is thinking about the infrastructure again, right? That is fundamentally the backbone of exploration, and it can change the scope of human experience for generations. And so thank you for opening up that opportunity for our kids, for my kids, your kids, everybody's futures. You, when you feel like a kid, which happens at every launch. In that spirit, I'm very honored to introduce a visionary leader who's really driving that future. We get excited about things like infrastructure and acquisitions and all of that. Niki Werkheiser is the Director of Technology Maturation for Space Tech. She's at the front lines of bringing innovation from idea to tangible progress into the moon and beyond. She's got her master's from University of Alabama, Huntsville in gravitational biology. She says no, she doesn't want to hear about bachelor's and all that stuff. All that's good. Really, okay. She is a champion for innovation and collaboration for the tech of our nation. Come on up, Niki. Thank you very much.
I'm just ready to get to work and talk about what's next. How about that, instead of what's already happened? Okay, good morning. Is it still morning? I'm not holding y'all from lunch this time, I don't think. Am I the last one? Yeah, I always end up getting the crowd right before lunch where everybody looks really hungry and tired. So eat some sugar, drink some coffee. Nope, no coffee. Jamie will get upset. In here? Oh, okay, new rules. So I wanted to follow up a little bit on what Jason kind of started with this morning. He was talking about kind of what LSIC is, what it started out as 5 years ago. By the way, the first national kickoff was 1 week before we all went into COVID quarantine and the world changed. So it was like the last time I saw people for a while. And he talked kind of about what we are, why. But I want to talk for a moment about why and just give a little more context there. There's a couple of reasons it's really important. Number one, for technology, everything that we do involves technology. So a lot of times we'll talk with our organizational hats on. You'll hear us say, this is for science, this is for exploration. The bottom line is it's all one story. It's all one mission. And everything we do requires technologies. And that goes for on Earth and in space. And it's critical. And so when we looked around at all the different forums that were out there, there really wasn't anything that just focused on technology, that worked with all of those communities to come together and say, what do we need to do to create a cohesive plan? We used the sustainability word a lot. We used that a lot early in Artemis. If you remember the days where everybody would kind of give their definition of what sustainability was. Now we're doing that with infrastructure. And from day one, what we said from LSIC's perspective is if you don't get those novel technologies mature enough to be infused into the mission, scaled up and infused into institutional capabilities, then it's all for naught, right? We can't innovate. And that goes for us as a country here on Earth and in space. So we wanted to have this kind of community where we could all get together and not only have fun talks like this, but have those focus groups, have those thematic workshops, do studies and assessments, and have real-world conversation. So I always like to reiterate when we're at these meetings that I want you to know when you go out to the breakout groups from here, when you do the focus groups each month, all of those things, the workshops, your feedback does not go into a black hole. This was designed from day one, where APL is a fantastic system integrator. They're not only facilitating LSIC's fun, but it exists so that we are not in an echo chamber. It exists so that we can work as an integrated community to talk about how to use technologies for science and exploration and get those missions on the moon and Mars. So I just want to say thank you, and I wanted to talk about that why a little bit. Let's see, and the other point I wanted to bring up on the technology side is it's kind of ironic to me the more I think about it. You know, a lot of times everybody understands why we need technology development. I can talk to, like Clayton said, a young class, I don't know, about 3 years old, but I may not be as good at that, but let's just say second, third grade. And they understand technologies. The first thing they ever ask me is, can you 3D print an iPhone? When can you do that? I'm going to be excited. Where's Terry from Nokia? Let me know when we can do that, Terry. You know, the bottom line is that we have to, hold on a second. If we keep putting off those technologies to tomorrow, then if you're 10 years out today, you're going to be 10 years out next year, and 10 years from now, you're still going to be 10 years out. So in order to infuse and incorporate those into the missions, you have to start today. So that's kind of my soapbox I wanted to say, and I know hopefully it's kind of a kumbaya here with this crowd, but I think we have to keep stressing how important that is. So if I go to the next chart. So now let's talk about what comes next. So what do we mean when we say infrastructure? Infrastructure is the fundamental physical and organizational structures and facilities needed to function effectively. It is what we all need. So earlier, someone asked a really good question about how we can all work together more and not have too many cooks in the kitchen, but share cost. The thing about technology is that's beautiful. We have a lot of early and mid TRL technologies that need to be advanced and matured so they can be scaled up and infused, that have common needs across terrestrial and space applications in all the areas we're talking about. So if we co-invest in getting that maturation done, then the applications may differ, the missions may differ, but we all can co-invest in getting them to that point. And that's kind of one thing I consider to be infrastructure. So establishing that infrastructure is the essential step that we all need to go from the shorter-term Apollo-like missions to even discuss having the longer-term missions on the moon and Mars. We have to evolve the footprints to foundations. And that's a paradigm shift for us as well, by the way. So what does this translate to in terms of lunar infrastructure? So as I mentioned, today's novel technologies must become tomorrow's institutional capabilities. If I had to give you one statement just to repeat over and over, I had a bumper sticker, it would be that. Because the novel technologies are cool, right? We can do this all day long, it's fun, everybody's excited about it. But what are we trying to do? Why are we investing in those? It is so we can mature them where they become our normal capabilities that we infuse into these missions. And we need to be doing that now. Capabilities need to be deployed. We need to be able to return to them and reuse them. That is part of having infrastructure. And our assets need to become aggregated surface systems so that we can establish a U.S. presence and bolster our commercial capabilities. So this goes back to what Clayton called it, commodes and roads. I usually call it pipes and roads, but hey, commodes too. But yeah, what do we need to do to establish kind of that basic infrastructure to make that happen? So someone asked about lift earlier, and this is where I want to talk some about that. So what do we really mean when we say establish it? We're doing some really cool stuff. I mean, one of the main focuses of this meeting this year, the spring meeting, and will be on the upcoming panel and several of the panels, is how in short 5 years, how many technologies have been matured enough that they have either flown to the moon. You'll be hearing about those on the panel. But we have more, we have probably triple that number, if not more, of technologies in that same time period that were advanced. They've been through high fidelity ground testing, through dirty TVACs and environmental testing, and are waiting for mission and fusion opportunities. We do as much as we can on the ground, but the moon's a tough environment. And there's some things that are just really foundational knowledge, the kind of if-thens that we need to get up there and test for components, systems, subsystems, all of the above. So when we talk about establish, it is to set up, create, or found something in a firm or stable way. And I'm going to pull on that word stable a lot. I think that stability of a plan is what we all need. Jason, you referred earlier to being impressed with the Chinese booth that you saw at IEC. And I agree, and that part of that is they have a stability and a plan that they are sticking with and checking off that box. So we need to be able to do that. So what have we seen in 5 years from the community in terms of consistent feedback, regardless of the capability area, regardless of if we're at a workshop or a monthly focus group, what comes up over and over again? And it's really centered around the need for NASA as a government entity to chart a path for emerging Moon and Mars capabilities that we can evolve from missions to markets. So this theme is not only from the LSIC participants over the last 5 years, but we also had a tremendous response to the 2020 Lunar Infrastructure Foundational Technologies, the mission RFI that we put out. Now at that time, what we were planning was an RFI followed up with an RFP for a singular mission, right? Looking at how to extract oxygen from regolith. But just like Clayton said, you cannot, is it okay? Okay. You cannot just do ISRU without power, without mitigating the dust, without some mobility, some autonomy, surviving the environment. So all of these things you get to test and raise the TRL of. But what we saw was the feedback of, okay, that's great, just like the CLIPS missions are great. But is that kind of again, the footprints versus the foundations? How do we build something that we can come back to, creating both a commercial ecosystem that can grow from that, as well as being able to test and develop these technologies, of which a huge percentage are extensible to Mars. So a lot of the feedback was NASA needs to establish a national plan beyond isolated landings that provides a stable demand signal and infusion path for the burgeoning U.S. commercial ecosystem. That has been a resounding, unanimous feedback. Technologies and architecture should culminate in a cohesive infrastructure that can be used and reused by future missions for a commercial lunar ecosystem and or Mars extensibility. And industry technologies that are matured via NASA awards. We talked earlier, and partnerships, very importantly. We talked earlier about ACOs and tipping points and SBIRs. We have done so many of those. We'll be sharing some metrics soon on that we're trying to validate. But over the last 5 years, our small Lunar Surface Innovation Initiative, LSII team, has worked across all the different programs, mission directorates, and with industry to create literally hundreds of opportunities and grants and SBIRs and ACOs and tipping points and prizes and challenges. Every mechanism out there, we have utilized it. But how do we, once those are done, even if they're wildly successful, where do they go next, right? How do we build upon those in an organized way, cohesive way? And I'll note that many of those partnerships have had considerable IRAD investments that are to be incorporated into the infrastructure. These are true partnerships. Our tipping points require real skin in the game from our industry partners, and that's a model that we're moving more and more to. So we stepped back and thought about this, and the truth is, you're right. The truth is that is what we are all struggling with, is how do we build upon what we're doing? So in direct response, NASA and APL, we've been working together really hard to create a framework for a future RFP, hopefully sooner rather than later, but I cannot give a date today, and it is certainly budget dependent, but we have got a really robust framework for an RFP that leverages our U.S. industry's innovation to develop a mission-driven technology pipeline. And that would create a cost-effective, minimum viable lunar surface infrastructure with commercial lunar and/or Mars extensibility. And you can see the areas there. A lot of the areas have been talked about or touched upon today in both Jason's, Clayton's, and John's talks. But these are, again, these are kind of, common sense. If you talk to anyone to live and operate in an environment, these are capabilities that you're going to need. So the key there is we don't think it's going to be one mission. It really is, and I know the word roadmap is overused. That's why I'm using framework. But the thing I do like about a roadmap is it has to be aligned with a viable, realistic schedule and budget. And Clayton said it well earlier when he said, we are going to do all of these things. They have to be done. The timeline, the phasing, the sequencing, if they're in serial or parallel, all of that is dependent on that technical need, as well as our schedule and our budget aligning. So we are very excited, and I think we've got an excellent framework for exactly how to do that and to create that infrastructure that you can build upon, really leveraging this community's innovation and experience. We want to get more stuff flown. So with that said, I am going to skip now to the next slide. Oh, actually, I don't want to show you that yet. I'm going to talk about it first. So, and speaking of all the ways that we need to be working together and partnering, I want to emphasize how critical it is not only to invest in the technologies themselves, but just as deliberately to invest in the people and the skill sets required to ensure that our nation can really stay on the cutting edge of technology. And that really is key to life right here on Earth, as well as for space exploration. So I'm proud to say that the Lunar Autonomy Challenge that we just wrapped up is a beautiful example of exactly that. This was with Caterpillar, APL, Embodied AI, and NASA all working together. So this challenge was not just another coding competition. These students were part of creating a real-world space exploration testbed by creating a digital twin of the very complex and challenging lunar environment, and boy, is it. It mimicked the rugged terrain, low lighting, and extreme constraints of the moon's south pole. Now, what they did, the work that they did, will be used. It's going to be help to inform the ground testing, the design, and even the mission planning for the Pilot Excavator rover at Kennedy Space Center. And if Jason Schuler is in the room anywhere, he's right there over there in the center. He's the project manager at Kennedy Space Center. And I highly recommend tomorrow when we have our showcase that you stop by the booth there and see that, as well as a video of the students' designs. So I want to first begin by applauding the remarkable talent, the ingenuity, and the perseverance of all 31 student teams who took part in the challenge. We witnessed everything that Clayton noted earlier regarding how important it is to inspire. But in this case, I can honestly say that these students probably inspired me more than we inspired them. We do have several of the challenge team members online and in the audience. And I would like to thank, I know Eric Reiner is online. He's busy at work at the Lunar Robotics Challenge. Just want to say thank you to Eric. I wish I could really clone his vision for how we can all work together to develop the skill sets that we need here on Earth and in space. And now, drum roll, please, is now I can flip the chart to announce the winners. So first place is we have the Nav Lab team at Stanford University. And I hope not to embarrass her too badly, but I think we have the faculty advisor, Grace Gow, here in the audience. Are you here, Grace? Here she is. Thank you. And Grace, I think you've been coming to these since 2023-ish, I believe, and we're so happy to have you, but congratulations to your team, and thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know that's a lot of extra work, but boy, does it pay off. Second place is the Maple team at MIT, and third place is the Moonlight team from Carnegie Mellon. So please join me in giving them a round of applause. They give us confidence that a robust, capable aerospace workforce is on the rise. And more than that, they're all people that we may be depending on, or will be, I'll say for me, depending on to operate and manage our future surface infrastructure missions that we're working to build today for the Moon and Mars. So this is our future workforce. So with that, I'll break, and I don't think we were taking any questions for this part. If we have time, I don't mind, but I will say the panel that's coming up, oh, I have to look. Are we out of time? Oh, time. Okay, good. All right, they'll be happy. So we do have a panel coming up that kind of naturally leads from what I just talked about now into the panel with a lot of our projects that flew to the moon. So, yeah, coffee time.